Because branding makes you feel a consistent emotion every time. Yes. So I don't start by asking her to marry me. I go to the ultimate umbrella, which is at the top, which is marketing, right? When we talk about marketing, I am on a quest to get her to know that I exist. That's number one. I'm on a quest to get her to know what I exist for, what I stand for as a person. So in other words, I'm trying to get her to know that, yeah, I learn at the same school with you. That's number one. I'm trying to get her to at least know my age, because I could be 50 and she's 22. So at least she has to know my age. I'm trying to get her to have an awareness of me, that when she sees me, she can ultimately then say, that's Liberty. What does he do? Yeah, he's all right. She may not be thinking of me yet in the sense of, am I going to marry this person? But she has an awareness of me, what I stand for, and at least who I am. So I'm on a quest to gain a certain level of her having knowledge of me in her mind. Hope you're getting this, everybody. Exactly. And that is where we're making a mistake when it comes to ourselves. Remember, I told you that there is marketing, advertising, there is branding, there is sales. But because we have a product, we want to sell it. I have a product, so I want to sell it. I have a service, so naturally I want to sell it. But that is the equivalent of you saying, I have male reproductive organs, so I need to get married to you. What? It doesn't make sense. You can't say because you have a product, you just need to buy it for some reason. And then when I get down on one knee, I start telling her about how we're going to have 3 children and how we're going to have 10 grandchildren and how I'm even creating the whole generation. And she has absolutely no idea who I am. So I'm trying to make her make a life commitment. In other words, I'm trying to make her pay money, yet she has not even paid attention. You will never win in sales if you do that, which is what you are doing, most of you. Why? Because you see that you have rent that you need to pay, you have children that you need to feed, so you need to make the sale now. But that's the equivalent of me feeling like, you know what, I'm now 40, 45, not married. She needs to accept my proposal now. It doesn't matter how desperate I am. It doesn't make her desperate to have what I have or to be with me. So your desperation is not going to do anything for the other person except repel them. All right. I tell you the truth. This is what most people are doing in their businesses. This is what most people are doing. So your idea is she has to marry me. So we then have marketing, right? Then we're saying that we then have branding. When we talk about branding, what we are saying is that when you think of me or when you think of Beyond Motivation, how do you feel? What comes to mind when you see our logo, when you see one of our videos? How do you feel? And if you're feeling different or indifferent on every single video, on every single logo, on every single encounter, then there is no brand. Because branding makes you feel a consistent emotion every time you encounter something that has to do with me, my company, or my products. So in other words, when I start talking to my wife to be, and I tell her that tomorrow I'll arrive at 8, and I actually arrive at 8. The next day I say I'll arrive at 7, and I actually arrive at 7. Then I'm creating a brand of being time conscious. So anytime she thinks of anything to do with delay, she's like, you know what, this guy, if only he could be like, you get it? Because I have created a brand, a consistent emotion that I trigger in a person. In other words, what I'm saying is that what it is that comes to mind when you think of me or my company, that is the brand. How I make you feel, that is the brand. So I then have to make sure that my friends know about, or her friends rather, are starting to feed her information. That's why, for those that are not married, if there is a girl that you want to court, make sure that the friends like you, because you're going to spend more time with the friends than with you. So in other words, now the friends are whispering all of these good things about me. And then I have to be consistent in delivering that, henceforth creating a brand. All right. So I'm going through all of these things, the marketing, the advertising. Don't worry too much about, getting deep into these things and definitions and whatnot. It's not the idea. The idea is for us to do things tomorrow. Okay. So I'm going through all of these things. I'm not rushing the sale. I'm not rushing the sale. Because I tell you this, if you do your marketing correctly, your advertising correctly, your branding correctly, you may not even have to sell. You still will sell, but what I'm saying is a lot of people will actually come to you, not necessarily you going to them and pestering them. I hope you're getting this. So I have never said, you know what, Claire, please just join my course. We just need to support each other. There's Africans here, you know how things are. And no, I don't have to do that because the branding, the marketing, and the advertising has done that for me. So now, everybody, we are saying the first thing you have to understand is where you flop in sales or where you trip over is when you're trying to get a person to pay attention or to pay money that is not even paid attention, which is what most people are doing. Okay? Obviously, there are a lot of teachings that we have on how to start a business and whatnot. So every single class kind of focuses on one specific area. So don't worry too much about that. Okay? Don't worry too much about that. But I see that people here are getting it. Now, you may then ask, how do I make people pay attention? How do I get people to pay attention? All right. Remember, you want to be successful in sales. Forget the money. Forget the money. How do I get people to pay attention? Which would be what I would ask myself if I want to approach my wife to be. How do I get her to pay attention? It's not how do I get her to marry me. I think that's too far down the line. How do I at least get her to pay attention? Because one thing that I have to understand is I'm not the only man on this planet. I'm not the only man. Probably not the richest. Maybe not the one with the most grace. Right? So I can't say that, no, I am the ultimate product. No. We may then see that our destinies were solidified by God before the beginning began, but that's a conversation we can only have later on. For right now, as we know it, there are billions of guys out there. How do I get her to pay attention? That's the question. The first thing you need to do, and I taught one of my classes this as we go through this. The first thing you need to do, everybody, is do not go for sales. No, don't go for sales. Build a community. Okay? Please write this down. The first thing you need to do is do not go for sales. No, don't go for sales. Build a community. Please, I understand people don't want to hear that. They're hungry to make sales, hungry to make that 1,000, that 2,000, that 5,000. Do not go for sales. Build a community. And if you look at the word community, you will see the word commune. That's where we get our commune, our communication, all of these things. So don't go for sales, but rather you build a community. All right. We need to build our businesses right because there are a lot of people that are losing money on the backbone of ignorance, right? So it's not to say that there's anything wrong with your product, or your service, you just don't know how to do it exactly. But we play this game every single day, and it's a game that we win very well. How do you build a community? And what is a community? Okay? What we are saying is, number one, what you ought to do in building a community is you provide value. All right? You start to build people that you provide value to. I didn't say people that you sell to, please. You build a community by providing value to people. Value provision. Are you an accountant? A lawyer? Is your business into cleaning? Right? What does your business do? Are you a hairdresser? What does your business do? Do you provide consultancy services? Do you sell TVs, electronics? You do. Do you have a hardware? So whatever business you're thinking of and whatever business you want to get into, what we are saying is the first thing that you do is you provide people with value.